Everyone, dear colleagues, a warm welcome to this next part of our AFET meeting. Today, colleagues, we will now focus once more on our relations with Africa, which reflects the importance our committee gives to the political, security and economic relations between Africa on the one hand and Europe on the other hand. We will first hold an exchange of views on Tanzania, followed by an exchange of views on the situation in Ethiopia. I would like to give a warm welcome to our guest speakers, Ms. Rita Laranjina, the Managing Director for Africa at the European External Action Service. It is once again a pleasure to welcome you, Ms. Laranjina, in front of our committee. Moreover, I would like to also welcome Monsieur Didier Vers, Head of Unit for Eastern and Central Africa from DG INTPA. Colleagues, last month, to be precise, on the 13th of October, I met in my office here in Brussels Mr. Tundu Lissu. For those of you who might not know him, Tundu Lissu was presidential candidate and challenged former President Magufuli in the 2020 Tanzanian general election. In 2017, he survived an assassination attempt, and he now lives currently in Belgium. Mr. Tundu Lissu, however, is not the only one who was forced to leave Tanzania. Opposition politician Godbless Lema, for example, also had to flee and has been granted asylum in Canada. Ms. Laranjina, Mr. Vers, dear colleagues, I must say that I am deeply concerned about the human rights situation and the shrinking of civic space in Tanzania. Since 2015, this country has been sliding towards an authoritarian regime with restrictions in the political space, civil society and media at a cost for democracy, rule of law and human rights. Moreover, Tanzania is also affected by regional insecurity. There is instability in the Horn of Africa, the Great Lakes region, and the Indian Ocean. And there are the risks of spillover from the Islamist surge in northern Mozambique. Dear Ms. Laranjina, we have held an exchange of views on Tanzania in this committee in November 2020, right after the elections took place on the 28th of October last year. Now, 1 year later, I'm interested to hear the assessment of the European External Action Service on the political situation in the country after the death of former President Magufuli and under the new President, Ms. Samia Suluhu Hassan. Further, the detention of Mr. Freeman Mbowe remains a major concern. Mr. Mbowe has been in prison since July the 21st, when he was arrested along with a number of other senior opposition officials just hours before they were about to hold a public forum to demand constitutional reforms in their country. I was also informed that last Sunday, the government, due to terrorism threats, prohibited a meeting of the opposition party Chadema. However, the responsible authorities didn't raise the terrorism threat level. Obviously, the reasons stated by the police force could be considered as unfounded. Ms. Laranjina, what are the activities of the European External Action Service on these kind of matters? And how is the EAS supporting constitutional changes in Tanzania, which is the only way that will guarantee freedom, justice, peace and security? And finally, the deterioration of the rule of law and the independence of judiciary is alarming. Freedom of association expression is very limited. In spite of this situation, the IMF approved in September $567.25 million in emergency support to Tanzania to address the pandemic, and said that Tanzanian authorities have committed to strengthen governance and transparency. So in this context, I would like to ask you how much money the European Union is currently spending and how this spending is monitored, scrutinized, and in the end, justified. So I would like to give you the floor first for 10 minutes, then to Monsieur Didier Vers, and then I will give the floor to a number of members as appearing on the speakers list. Once again, Ms. Larangina, warm welcome. The floor is yours.
In a year of profound changes for Tanzania. I hear your concerns, but I think that there are also reasons for optimism. The exchange of views is therefore very timely. It is very important for us so that we can exchange notes and exchange on our reading of the situation. As you said, the country emerged from elections in October 2020. These elections raised concern. In March 2021, President Magufuli passed away. The Vice President, Samia Suluhu Hassan, took over according to the Constitution without unrest. Unquestionably, it was a remarkable feat in this region. In these last months, we have witnessed what we consider a positive beginning for President Samia, domestically and internationally. President Samia has adopted conciliatory messages of appeasement to civil society. She has been, we consider, discreet and effective. She has avoided populist messaging. She has introduced some changes in government. She is consolidating her political position of engagement, her term going until 2025. And we have to recall that she took office only March last year in exceptional circumstances. March this year, sorry. So domestically, we see some changes that we consider that move towards more tolerance for freedom of expression, that enables the media to be more outspoken. NGOs admit to feeling less pressure. The measures announced and the cooperative tone have been received positively by the international community and by the civil society in Tanzania. President Samia has also shown leadership and commitment to advance gender policies. She has made high-level appointments. Several women have been appointed as notably Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Defense. A policy of late President Magufuli, which required pregnant girls and young mothers to stop attending school, was recently overturned. There has been also a 180-degree turn internationally. President Samia swiftly visited neighbors in Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda and joined 2 SADC summits. She attended the UN General Assembly, COP26, and she recently visited Egypt. On the important front against violent extremism that you referred to, which appears to increase dramatically in the region after the Kampala attacks, the lingering threats from Cabo Delgado insurgents and from Al-Shabaab in Somalia, President Samia is also bringing much-needed openness and avenues for collaboration, contributing to the SADC mission in Cabo Delgado, but also publicly acknowledging the need for civil society and media to play a role in the fight against terrorism. On COVID-19, Tanzania moved from being an outlier in denial of the gravity of the pandemic to a partner that engages in a prevention and vaccination campaign, sharing still basic epidemiological data and with the ambition to develop vaccines and medicines. A positive situation is also seen in Zanzibar, where Zanzibar that has important devolved powers and an autonomous government. In spite of the electoral violence in the islands, the CCM candidate who was declared winner made a coalition government with the opposition party ACT Wazalendo. The coalition has been upheld despite some challenges. Stability in Zanzibar is crucial for Tanzanian stability, and local grievances can also have broad connections and repercussions across the Muslim East Africa coast. Despite the progress, democracy and political and civic freedoms, as you have highlighted. Pluralism and multi-party democracy stalled in the national parliament. The October 2020 elections led to a national parliament in Dodoma with 97% of elected members from the ruling party CCM. There is no representation of the political opposition compared to the previous cycle. The main opposition party, Chadema, refuses to accept the election results. The chairman of Chadema remains in prison, as you have said, since July, accused of financing terrorism and other serious charges. This judicial process is ongoing, and the EU, together with its member states and other members of the international community, follows closely, including through attendance to some of the court sessions. The situation has certainly an impact in the national political environment. We will continue to follow this closely, and you are well aware of an exchange of letters between yourself and HRVP Borrell specifically on this issue. President Samia announced she would meet with the opposition parties for dialogue months ago, and this meeting has not materialized yet, which we consider a setback. During the Universal Periodic Review of Tanzania in Geneva in November, many pertinent questions were simply noted and not accepted by the government of Tanzania. The need to progress on issues of human rights and fundamental freedom is clear. The legal environment still remains restrictive, after the many policies entrenched during the Magufuli rule are kept. This affects media and civil society and business. Although the atmosphere is more relaxed, the restrictive legislation is still in place, and the supporters of the hard line across the administration and of the ruling party CCM maintain some influence. In the course of the past months, we had an opportunity for a constructive re-engagement between EU and Tanzania. The President of the European Council has been in touch with President Samia over the phone and also in the margins of the Yunga. This high-level re-engagement has also been very important, as it signals the will to be constructive, to cooperate on both sides, and also to share messages of those issues in which we are still concerned. Tanzania and the EU held a session of political dialogue on the 29th of October, the first in many years, which I co-chaired together with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Liberata Mulamula, in Dar es Salaam, and also in presence of the Minister of Defense. In this dialogue, we were able to discuss many topics. The first topic on the agenda was democracy and human rights, and we highlighted our concerns. We also discussed issues related to economic and development cooperation, regional security, and multilateral topics. The dialogue was friendly, constructive. We issued a joint communiqué that mentions our agreement to hold political dialogue every year, which would be a welcome change and which will be an occasion for us to continue to pass on our messages of support and of concern. Regarding human rights and elections, we specifically mentioned the recommendations from the Electoral Observation Mission of 2015, and the Tanzanian authorities were open to cooperate on this with us. Regarding trade, there was an agreement to hold a technical discussion on the prospects of the EU-AAC Economic Partnership Agreement. On security, we encouraged further cooperation between the EU and Tanzania, as there are grounds for common interests in the region, and the EU is already offering support, for example, to SADC and actively intervening in Cabo Delgado. We also discussed openly the situation of COVID-19. During my visit to Tanzania, I also met with leaders of opposition parties, including Chadema and ACT Wazalendo. Here in Brussels, we have received Chadema leader Tundu Lissu. It is important to maintain communication with all possible stakeholders, and we will do so. The Partnership for Development Cooperation is based on decades of cooperation where the EU and Tanzania have worked together for sustainable development across sectors. The MIP for 21-27 was presented to Member States and is proceeding smoothly. My colleague Didier Verset from DG INPA will develop on this. In conclusion, Tanzania remains an important partner for the EU. We may not always be in full agreement, but we have regained the possibility of openly discussing our points of difference and of openly call the attention to those issues that you have rightly mentioned, Mr. Chair. We have opened up a number of important avenues of cooperation that can deliver clear results. We can now work better together in supporting a more conducive environment for investment, for developing trade, cooperating on regional and maritime security. all the while remaining a reliable development partner aligned with national objectives and committed to good governance and human rights.